Hi friends, in this session we are going to look how do we work with if in PowerShell, and we are going to see some practical examples. So how does the if statement syntax look like? So like any other programming languages, an if has a condition, else another condition with an action. So basically that is how it works. So it is pretty simple. Okay, the condition is given within the round brackets and the actions are given within the butterfly brackets. Okay, so this is how it. You could also have nested if statements. We will also look at it. So now, like any other sessions we have gone through, we are going to initialize some variables and use the variables in the if statement. So let me initialize two variables, var int1 which is about 50 and then var int2 which is 76. Now we are going to compare these variables. So I am going to use all the comparative operators which we are going to use. Let's try to use as much as possible. So I am going to use the greater than or equal to and the less than statements, and I will put a logical operator with a which is AND. So it's similar to any other programming language. So we will have some comparative operators, some logical operators, and some string and list based operators. So now we will see greater than or equal to and less than and the AND operator. So these three we will use. So the AND operator is true when both the conditions or when all the conditions are true, whereas an OR is false when all the conditions are false. That's the difference. So you need to judge what is the requirement and then use the logical operators. So here I am going to say if var int is greater than 50 and if var int2 is less than 70, then it's going to print some message, else it's going to print some other message. So let's try it out and see. So it's a false statement because the second var int2 less than 70 is false. So it's basically a false statement. So it goes below. So now let us try with the nesting of if statements. Now we are going to nest an if statement within the else, where I have put var int greater than 70. So it's going to say var int is greater than 70. So that's what it will print. Now we are going to work with strings. Okay, so I'll just type in some possible operators that are commonly used. Okay, and then we'll continue with strings. So let me initialize two strings, var string 1 and var string 2, and give it some two variables. Var string 1 it will be a string, rather than a string it will be a phrase or a sentence. Var string 2 will be a smaller string, and then we also have, let us also initialize var string 3 as well. Okay, and try using the 3. So first let us see how do we check a simple if. Okay, so I'm going to see what it will do is we are just going to see if there is a value assigned to that variable. So I'll just say if variable, it will print that the variable is there. If it is not assigned, it will say variable is not assigned. So now it will say a variable is not null because the string exists. Now we can use equal to. So similar kind of operation that we did on integer, we are going to do on strings using the minus eq equals. So let's use one of the strings and check if it equals another string that we give. Here I will use directly a string instead of two variables while comparing. So let's use $string2 equal to my. If it is there, then it will write print that it is my. So yeah. Now we are going to use another statement which we use commonly in strings, that is the match. So now I'm going to try to match a string my in the first var string 1, which is basically a statement or rather a sentence. So here it found my in that entire strings. So it will say I found it. So if it now let us take a variable which where my is not there. Let's say my var string 3 and let's run it and see what does it do. So ideally it should not find the my string. There is no my string in var string 3 which is initialized to a value super. Next we are going to see the like clause. That's another something which we use in string. So some string like some other string. So now we will say, let's say take var string 1 is like shit. Okay, then we will, if it is there, then we will replace it with something else. So that also, so there is another operator you are going to basically see and learn here is the replace. It's an inbuilt operator. So string minus replace, okay, old value with the new value. So if you do that way, it basically is going to replace the old value with the new value. So here you are going to replace it with string. So now another important kind of comparison that we do is using the arrays or the lists, whatever you want to call it. So there you can say arrays. So I'm going to initialize an array and then let's see how do we find if an element occurs in an array. So there is an operator called contains. So I'm going to use the contains operator to check whether if an element is present in an array. So there we can do it two ways. Directly we can either compare if an array contains a particular element, that's one way. Another second way is you can do a for loop and then do a equal to with each element internally, but that's a long way of doing it. Since there is an option to directly use the contains, so we will use the contains. So once it is done, we will see some practical examples. Okay, so we are going to use the get process. So get process basically lists all the processes which are running on your system. It's just like the task manager, okay, on a Windows box. So we are going to use similar one here. Get process, it will give the list all the processes. As we studied in the variables, the output will be an object. Okay, so basically you can get the object by process name or by CPU utilized, memory utilized, or CPU time, so on and so forth. So we can use the option. Okay, so what we will do, we will get the process and see if the CPU utilization or the CPU time it uses. It's not the CPU utilization here, it's basically CPU time. So if the CPU time is greater than 100, we are going to print those processes. Same thing we can do with get service. Get service gives a list of all the services that are running on the computer or the server or what the entity basically. You can check if a service is running or if it is stopped. Okay, so all these statuses you can find out. So basically it will be again the output of the command is object. So you are going to use the basically the key of the object. It could be status or it could be name, so on and so forth, and then you are going to check it against a status. Here we are going to say if the status is running, we will say the process is running. If it is not running, we will say the process is not running. So these are some practical examples that you can use in your situation. Let's say you are automating something, you are automating some checks. So these kind of things can be used. Another example is to check if a computer on your network is up or not. So there is a command called test connections. We can use the test connections and then on that we can put a if statement and find out whether the computer is up. If it is up, you leave it. If it is not up, probably you want to send a mail or take another action. All those things can be scripted out using PowerShell. So these are basically the practical applications how you will use them. Okay, in a scenario where you want to automate stuff in your environment. So I will initialize a variable to an IP and then use that. Okay, so I need to find some IP which is down and then see if it is down, else it will show it is up. So I got it, some 100 machine is down, so it should print that this machine is down. So this is how your if loops work, with some practical examples. Next we are going to see how we work with loops, the for loop, the while loop, so on and so forth. Till then, thank you.